The rain came down hard that Tuesday evening, the kind of rain that soaks through your clothes in seconds. Derek had been standing near the glass doors of Riverside Shopping Center for the past 10 minutes, watching people rush to their cars with newspapers over their heads and shopping bags clutched tight against their chests. His shift was supposed to end at 9, but he didn't mind staying a bit longer. After 3 years working security at this mall, he'd learned that the job wasn't just about checking cameras and walking around. It was about people. At 34 years old, Derek took pride in what he did. Sure, some folks looked down on security guards, thought it wasn't a real career or anything special, but Derek saw it differently. Every day he helped lost kids find their parents, gave directions to confused tourists, and made sure everyone felt safe while they shopped. His mama had raised him right, taught him that honest work was honest work, and that treating people with respect mattered more than a fancy job title. He was about to head to the back office when he noticed something that made him stop. There was an old man sitting on one of the wooden benches near the entrance, and he was absolutely drenched. Water dripped from his thin gray hair down onto his shoulders. His jacket looked like it had been through better days, probably 10 years ago. The old guy was shaking, whether from cold or something else Derek couldn't tell. What struck Derek most wasn't just that the man was wet and cold. It was how people were treating him. Or rather, how they weren't treating him at all. Shoppers walked past like he was invisible. A woman with her 2 kids actually pulled them to the other side of the corridor when they got close to his bench. A teenage boy wrinkled his nose and whispered something to his friend, and they both laughed as they passed by. Derek felt something tighten in his chest. He'd seen this before too many times. People could be cruel without even trying, especially when they saw someone who looked down on their luck. The old man was clutching a small brown bag to his chest like it contained everything he owned in the world. Maybe it did. Walking over, Derek made sure his voice was gentle. The last thing he wanted was to scare the guy. "Evening, sir. You doing all right there?" The old man looked up slowly. His eyes were pale blue, watery and tired. Really tired. The kind of tired that comes from more than just one bad day. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely loud enough to hear over the rain pounding against the glass. "I know I probably shouldn't be sitting here. I just needed to get out of the weather." No, you're fine," Derek said quickly, sitting down on the bench next to him. "That's not what I meant at all. I'm just checking if you need any help." "You look pretty cold there." The old man nodded slowly. "I missed my bus. Had to take care of something downtown. Took longer than I thought, and by the time I got to the stop, the bus had already gone. Next one doesn't come for another 2 hours." He gestured weakly toward the storm outside. "Can't stand out there in that. I tried for a bit, but—" He trailed off, shivering again. Derek didn't even think twice. "Hold on just a minute, okay? Don't go anywhere." He jogged back to the security office where his locker was. His supervisor, Tony, was sitting at the desk scrolling through his phone. "Heading out?" Tony asked without looking up. "In a bit. Hey, you seen that old guy sitting by the entrance?" Tony glanced up, frowning. "Yeah, I saw him earlier. He buying anything?" "Don't think so. Missed his bus, stuck here till the next one comes." Tony shrugged. "As long as he's not bothering anyone, I guess it's fine. But keep an eye on him. You know how corporate gets about people just hanging around." Derek grabbed his jacket from the locker, the navy blue one his wife had given him last Christmas. It was warm, waterproof, and probably the nicest piece of clothing he owned. He also pulled out his wallet. When he got back to the bench, the old man was still there, staring at his hands. Derek draped the jacket over the man's shoulders. "Here, this'll help with the cold." The old man looked shocked, like someone had just given him $1 million instead of a second-hand jacket. "Oh, I can't take this. This is yours, you'll need it." "I got another one," Derek lied easily. "Besides, my car's right in the parking garage. You need it more than me right now." Before the old man could protest more, Derek headed to the food court. Most of the places were closing up, but the coffee shop was still open. He ordered a large hot coffee and grabbed a sandwich from the cooler, the kind with turkey and cheese. Nothing fancy, but it was food. He paid with his own money, $12 total. That would mean skipping lunch tomorrow, but he'd make it work. Back at the bench, he handed everything to the old man. "Thought you might be hungry." This time the old man's eyes actually filled with tears. His hand shook as he took the coffee cup. I don't know what to say. Thank you. Thank you so much." "Don't mention it," Derek said, sitting down again. "What's your name, if you don't mind me asking?" "Harold," the old man said quietly. Harold Lancaster. Nice to meet you, Harold. I'm Derek. Derek Johnson. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment while Harold sipped the hot coffee. Derek could see the warmth spreading through him, the shaking gradually slowing down. After a few minutes, Harold spoke again. You're very kind. Most people just walk right past like I'm not even there. Derek shrugged. That's not right. Everybody deserves to be treated with respect no matter what they're going through. Is that how you were raised? Yes, sir. My mama used to say that you can tell everything about a person by how they treat folks who can't do anything for them. She worked as a nurse for 40 years, saw all kinds of people from all walks of life. She always said that kindness doesn't cost anything, but it's worth everything. Harold nodded slowly, seeming to think deeply about those words. Your mother sounds like a wise woman. She was the best, Derek said, his voice getting softer. Passed away 2 years ago, but I try to live the way she taught me. I'm sorry for your loss, Harold said sincerely. But she'd be proud of you right now. I can tell you that much. They talked for the next hour, just easy conversation. Harold told him about living alone across town, about how the city had changed over the years, about small things that didn't seem important but somehow were. Derek talked about his wife, his 2 kids, his daughter who wanted to be a doctor, and his son who loved basketball more than anything else in the world. When Harold's bus finally came, Derek walked him out to the stop, holding an umbrella over both of them. You take care of yourself, okay? Derek said. And hey, if you're ever at the mall again, come say hi. I'm here most days. Harold shook his hand firmly, looking Derek straight in the eye. I will, and Derek? Thank you, more than you know. As Derek watched the bus pull away into the rainy night, he felt good, not because he'd done something extraordinary, but because he'd done what any decent person should do. He'd seen someone who needed help, and he'd helped them. It was that simple. Walking back to his car, Derek didn't realize that this one small act of kindness would change his entire life. He had no idea who Harold Lancaster really was, or why that old man had really been sitting in that mall. All Derek knew was that he'd done the right thing, and for him that was enough. The rain kept falling as he drove home, but Derek didn't mind. He was thinking about getting home to his family, maybe having some of the leftover chicken his wife had made the night before. Just another Tuesday night, just another day at work. He had no idea what was coming. Derek didn't expect to see Harold again. The mall got thousands of visitors every week, and most faces just blended together after a while. But 3 days after that rainy night, there he was. Same worn-out clothes, same quiet presence, sitting on a different bench near the fountain on the first floor. Derek was doing his usual rounds when he spotted him. His face lit up immediately. Harold? Hey, good to see you again. The old man looked up and a genuine smile crossed his face, the kind that reached his eyes. Derek, hello, I hope you don't mind me being here. Mind? Of course not. How have you been? You feeling better since the other night? Much better, thanks to you, Harold said. I actually came back hoping I might run into you. Wanted to return your jacket? Oh, don't worry about that, Derek said, waving his hand. You keep it as long as you need it, seriously. Harold's eyes got that watery look again, like he wasn't used to people being kind without wanting something in return. You're too generous. But I insist. I washed it and everything. He held out a neatly folded jacket. Derek took it, touched by the gesture. They talked for a few minutes before Derek had to continue his rounds, but something about that encounter stayed with him. Harold seemed lonely, really lonely, the kind of lonely that sits heavy in your chest. Over the next few weeks, Derek started seeing Harold at the mall almost every day. Sometimes he'd be on the first floor, sometimes the second, always sitting quietly with that same small bag. He'd read old newspapers that people left behind or sometimes just watch people walk by. He never bothered anyone, never asked for anything. He was just there. Derek made it a point to check on him during his breaks. They'd chat about simple things, the weather, how the mall was busier on weekends, little observations about life. Harold was smart, Derek noticed. Really smart. He had opinions about everything from politics to sports to how the city was changing. But he never talked much about himself, about his own life or family. One Thursday afternoon, Derek brought 2 sandwiches from home. His wife, Patricia, always packed him lunch, and that morning he'd asked her to make extra. He found Harold on his usual bench near the bookstore. Thought you might be hungry, Derek said, handing him one of the sandwiches. My wife makes the best ham and cheese you'll ever taste. Uses this special mustard and everything. Harold hesitated. Derek, you don't have to keep doing this. I know I don't have to. I want to. Come on, I can't eat both of these anyway. That became their routine. A few times a week, Derek would bring extra food. Sometimes it was leftovers from dinner. Sometimes just an apple or a bag of chips. Nothing fancy, just enough to make sure Harold was eating. Derek noticed the old man was getting thinner, his clothes hanging looser than before. It worried him, but not everyone felt the way Derek did. After about a month, things started getting uncomfortable. Derek was in the break room one afternoon when his supervisor, Tony, came in with Rita, one of the store managers from the department store on the second floor. We need to talk about that homeless guy, Rita said, crossing her arms. The one who's always sitting around. Derek looked up from his coffee. Harold, what about him? What about him? Derek, he's here every single day, taking up space, not buying anything. My customers have complained. They say he makes them uncomfortable. He's not doing anything wrong, Derek said, keeping his voice calm. He's just sitting there. He's not bothering anybody, Tony sighed. Look, Derek, I get that you're trying to be nice. But Rita has a point. We've got corporate breathing down our necks about maintaining a certain atmosphere. They don't want people just hanging out all day if they're not shopping. So what, we're just going to kick out an old man because he's not spending money? That doesn't seem right. Rita's voice got harder. It's not about right or wrong. It's about business. Other customers feel uncomfortable. That's a fact. Maybe he should try the public library or a community center or something. Derek felt his jaw tighten. Harold's not hurting anyone. He sits quietly, minds his own business, and leaves when the mall closes. I don't see the problem. The problem, Rita said slowly, like she was explaining something to a child, is that we're trying to run a business here, and having someone who looks like that hanging around all day doesn't exactly fit the image we're going for. Derek understood what she really meant. Harold looked poor. His clothes were old, his shoes had holes in them. People made assumptions based on that. Decided he didn't belong in their nice clean mall with the shiny floors and fancy stores. I'll keep an eye on him, Derek said firmly. If he causes any real problems, I'll handle it. But I'm not kicking him out just for existing. After they left, Derek sat there feeling frustrated. He'd seen this kind of thing his whole life. People treated you different based on how you looked, how much money they thought you had. His mama used to say that poverty wasn't a crime, but too many people treated it like one. The next day, Derek found Harold and gently told him about the complaints. He felt terrible doing it, but he wanted Harold to know what was happening. I'm not asking you to leave, Derek said quickly. I just wanted you to be aware. Some people have been talking. Harold nodded slowly, no surprise in his eyes. I understand. I can find somewhere else to spend my time. No, that's not what I'm saying. You're welcome here as far as I'm concerned. I just wanted you to know so you're not blindsided if someone else approaches you about it. You're putting your neck out for me, Harold observed. You could get in trouble, Derek shrugged. Some things are worth getting in trouble for. They sat in silence for a moment before Harold spoke again. Can I ask you something, Derek? Why do you care so much? I'm just an old man you met a few weeks ago. You don't owe me anything? Derek thought about it. You know, when I was growing up, we didn't have much. My dad left when I was young, and my mama worked double shifts at the hospital just to keep food on the table. There were times we relied on the kindness of neighbors, of people who didn't have to help but did anyway. I remember this one Christmas we had nothing. I mean nothing. And our neighbor, Mr. Chen, he brought over a whole meal on Christmas Eve. Turkey, stuffing, everything. Wouldn't take no for an answer. Derek smiled at the memory. My mama cried that night after Mr. Chen left. Happy tears, you know. She told me to never forget what he did, and to always pass that kindness forward when I could. Said that's how we make the world a little less cold. Harold was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. Your mother was right, and she raised a good man. Over the following days, Derek noticed Harold looking more worn down. His cough got worse, and sometimes his hands would shake when he held his coffee. Derek started to worry seriously. He did some research on his phone during breaks, looking up local shelters and assistance programs. He printed out information and brought it to Harold one afternoon. I'm not trying to get rid of you, Derek explained as Harold looked through the papers. I just want to make sure you have options. Some of these places offer free meals, medical checkups, help with housing applications. Harold studied the papers carefully, then folded them and put them in his pocket. I appreciate this more than you know, but I'm managing okay. I have my reasons for doing things the way I do. Derek wanted to push, wanted to ask what those reasons were, but he respected Harold's privacy. Everyone had their story, their reasons for the choices they made. Who was he to judge? What Derek didn't know was that Harold went home each night to a regular apartment across town. He had money in the bank, enough money to buy the entire mall if he wanted to. But every morning he'd put on his worst clothes, grab his worn-out bag, and come back. He was watching people, studying them, seeing how they treated someone they thought was beneath them. And Derek had no idea he was being tested. All Derek knew was that he'd made a friend, an unlikely friend maybe, but a real one. And in Derek's world, that meant something. It meant you showed up, you cared, and you did what was right even when it wasn't easy, even when people were telling you not to. It was a Tuesday morning in early December when Derek's world turned upside down. He'd just parked his car in the employee lot, grabbing his lunch bag from the passenger seat, when his phone rang. It was Tony, his supervisor, and his voice sounded strange. "Derek, you need to get to the south entrance right now. We've got a situation." Derek's heart dropped. Something in Tony's tone made him break into a run. When he got to the south entrance, there was already a small crowd gathered. His stomach twisted when he saw what everyone was looking at. Harold was on the ground. Derek pushed through the people, his training kicking in automatically. "Call 911, he shouted, dropping to his knees beside the old man. Harold's eyes were closed, his face pale as paper. His breathing was shallow and ragged. "Harold, can you hear me? It's Derek, stay with me, okay?" Derek's hands were shaking as he checked for a pulse. It was there, but weak. Too weak. A woman in the crowd spoke up. "I saw him collapse. Just fell right over. I think he's been here since last night." Last night? Derek felt sick. The mall had closed at 9 and it was now 7 in the morning. Had Harold been lying here for 10 hours? In the cold? The ambulance arrived within minutes, but it felt like hours. The paramedics worked quickly, asking questions Derek tried to answer. How old was he? Did he have any medical conditions? Was he on any medications? Derek realized he didn't know any of these things. He barely knew anything about Harold at all. "I'm going with him," Derek told Tony as they loaded Harold onto the stretcher. "Derek, your shift starts in 15 minutes. "I don't care. I'm going." Tony looked like he wanted to argue but just nodded. "Keep me updated." At the hospital, Derek sat in the emergency room waiting area, his leg bouncing nervously. He'd called Patricia to let her know what happened. She'd been worried but understanding, told him to do what he needed to do. That was one of the many reasons he loved her. After what felt like forever, a doctor came out. She was young, maybe in her early 30s, with kind eyes that had seen too much. "Are you family?" "No, I'm his friend, Derek Johnson." She glanced at her clipboard. "Mr. Lancaster doesn't have any emergency contacts listed. No family we can reach. You're the only person here for him." The words hit Derek hard. "No family, no one. How is he?" The doctor's expression was serious. "He's stable for now, but it's not good. Severe malnutrition, dehydration, and exposure to cold for an extended period. His body's been under stress for a while. If you hadn't found him when you did..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. "Can I see him?" "He's sleeping right now, but yes. Room 247. Derek found the room and quietly pulled a chair beside the bed. Harold looked so small under the white hospital sheets, so fragile. There were tubes and wires everywhere, machines beeping steadily. Derek sat down and put his head in his hands. He should have done more. He should have pushed harder about those shelters, should have been more insistent.
He'd known Harold wasn't eating enough, wasn't taking care of himself properly.
Why hadn't he done something sooner? "This isn't your fault," a nurse said softly from the doorway. She must have seen the look on his face. "You'd be surprised how many people in this hospital have nobody. You being here matters more than you know." Over the next few days, Derek came to visit every day after his shift. He brought fresh clothes he'd bought from the discount store, toiletries, magazines to read. Harold woke up on the third day, groggy and confused at first, but his eyes cleared when he saw Derek sitting there. "You're still here?" Harold whispered, his voice rough. "Where else would I be?" Harold's eyes filled with tears. "You should be with your family, not wasting time on an old fool like me." "Hey, none of that talk," Derek said firmly. "You're not a fool, and this isn't a waste of time. You're my friend, Harold." The old man turned his head away, but Derek could see his shoulders shaking. They sat in silence for a while before Harold spoke again. Why are you doing this? Really? You don't know me. I could be anyone. I could be a terrible person for all you know. Derek leaned back in his chair, thinking about how to answer. You know what I see when I look at you? I see someone who's hurting. Someone who's alone. And I think about how that could be me someday. Or my dad if he was still around, or anyone really. We're all just people trying to get through life the best we can. Some of us have more help than others, but at the end of the day, we're all the same. That's a rare way of thinking, Harold said quietly. Maybe, but it's how I was raised. My mama used to say that we're all connected, whether we realize it or not. What we do for others, we do for ourselves. What we deny others, we deny ourselves. Harold looked at him with an expression Derek couldn't quite read. There was something in his eyes, something deep and complicated. Your mother was a very wise woman. She was the best person I ever knew. A social worker came by later that afternoon. Her name was Linda, and she had that tired but determined look of someone who'd been doing this job for too long, but couldn't imagine doing anything else. She explained to Derek that Harold would need somewhere to go when he was discharged. The hospital bills were already piling up, and without insurance it was going to be a problem. We're looking at state-funded nursing facilities, Linda explained. It's not ideal, but given his condition and lack of resources, it's the best option. After she left, Derek sat in his car in the hospital parking lot for a long time. He thought about those state facilities. He'd seen them before, visited patients there during community outreach programs. They weren't terrible, but they weren't great either. Understaffed, overcrowded, places where people went to wait. Harold deserved better than that. That night, Derek talked to Patricia about it. They were in the kitchen, her washing dishes while he dried, their usual routine. The kids were upstairs doing homework. There's a boarding house on Maple Street, Derek said carefully. Mrs. Chen runs it. You remember her, right? Mr. Chen's widow. She's got clean rooms, makes meals for the residents. It's affordable. Patricia stopped washing and looked at him. How affordable? About $800 a month. She was quiet for a moment, her hands still in the soapy water. That's a lot of money, Derek. I know. That's money we've been saving. For the kids' college, for emergencies. I know, he said again. But Patricia, he's got nobody. And if we don't help him, who will? She dried her hands on a towel and turned to face him fully. For a long moment, she just looked at him and Derek couldn't tell what she was thinking. Then she reached up and touched his cheek gently. You have the biggest heart of anyone I've ever met, she said softly. It's one of the reasons I fell in love with you. And it's one of the reasons our kids are growing up to be good people. So we'll figure it out. We always do. If this is important to you, if this is the right thing to do, then we'll find a way to make it work. Derek pulled her into a hug, feeling a wave of gratitude and love. Thank you. I promise I'll pick up extra shifts. We'll make back the money. I'm not worried about the money, she said into his shoulder. I'm proud of you. Scared for our savings account, but proud. The next day, Derek went to see Mrs. Chen. She remembered him from the neighborhood, remembered his mother. When he explained the situation, she smiled warmly. Your mama would be proud of what you're doing. I can hold a room for your friend. First month's rent due at move-in. Derek wrote the check right there, watching his savings account number drop in his mind. $800. It was a big chunk of what they had saved. But when he went back to the hospital and told Harold about the arrangement, the look on the old man's face made every penny worth it. I can't let you do this, Harold protested weakly. Too late. Already done, Derek, this is too much. You've already done so much. Harold, listen to me. You'd do the same if the situation was reversed. I know you would. Harold looked at him for a long moment and something shifted in his expression. You really believe that, don't you? You really see the best in people? I try to, even when they don't deserve it. Derek smiled. Especially then. What Derek didn't know was that Harold was crying inside. Not sad tears, but something else entirely. This simple security guard, this man who barely had enough for his own family, had just given away money he couldn't afford to lose. For a stranger, for someone he thought had nothing to offer in return, Harold had his answer now. After months of testing, of watching how people treated him when they thought he was nobody, he'd finally found what he'd been looking for. He'd found genuine goodness, and it had come from the last place anyone would expect. Harold was discharged from the hospital on a Friday afternoon. Derek took a half-day off work to help him get settled at Mrs. Chen's boarding house. The old man had gained back a little weight, Some color had returned to his face, but he was still weak. Derek practically had to hold him up as they climbed the stairs to his new room on the second floor. The room was simple, but clean. A bed with a thick quilt, a dresser, a small table by the window. Mrs. Chen had put fresh flowers in a vase, and the afternoon sunlight made everything look warm and welcoming. Harold sat on the edge of the bed, looking around like he couldn't quite believe this was real. "It's perfect," he said quietly. "Derek, I don't know how I'll ever repay you." "You don't need to repay me. Just get better. That's all I want." Harold nodded, but there was something strange in his expression. He looked like a man carrying a heavy secret, something he wanted to say but couldn't quite get the words out. Derek figured it was just emotion, gratitude, maybe embarrassment at needing help. He didn't push. "I'll come check on you tomorrow," Derek promised. Mrs. Chen said dinner's at 6. "The other residents are nice folks," she says. "You won't be alone here." "Thank you," Harold said, and his voice cracked. "For everything." That weekend passed normally. Derek worked his shifts, came home to Patricia and the kids, tried not to think too much about how thin their savings account looked now. On Sunday, he stopped by to visit Harold, bringing some homemade soup Patricia had made. The old man seemed different somehow, more alert, more focused. He kept looking at Derek like he was trying to memorize his face. Monday morning, Derek was in the middle of his rounds at the mall when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Is this Derek Johnson?" A woman's voice, professional and crisp. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Jennifer Cole. I'm calling from the law offices of Whitmore and Associates downtown. We need you to come to our office today if possible. It's regarding Harold Lancaster." Derek's stomach dropped. Is he okay? Did something happen? "Mr. Lancaster is fine, but there's a matter we need to discuss with you in person. It's quite important. I'm working right now. I can't just leave. Mr. Johnson, I assure you, your employer will understand. This is regarding a legal matter that requires your immediate attention. Would 11 o'clock work?" Something in her tone made it clear this wasn't a request. Derek agreed, his mind spinning with possibilities. Had Harold done something wrong? Was Derek in some kind of trouble for helping him? He told Tony he needed to leave for a family emergency and drove downtown, his hands gripping the steering wheel too tight. The law office was in one of those tall glass buildings that made Derek feel out of place the moment he walked through the doors. Everything was marble and leather and expensive-looking art on the walls. The receptionist, perfectly dressed and perfectly polite, directed him to a conference room on the 15th floor. When Derek opened the conference room door, his brain couldn't process what he was seeing. The room was huge, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. There was a massive table in the center, and sitting at the head of that table was Harold. Except it wasn't the Harold he knew. This Harold wore an expensive suit, probably worth more than Derek made in 6 months. His hair was neatly trimmed, his posture straight and confident. Around him sat several people in business attire, lawyers probably, all looking at Derek as he stood frozen in the doorway. "Derek," Harold said, standing up. His voice was the same, but everything else was different. "Please come in." "Sit down." Derek's legs felt like they might give out. He made his way to a chair, never taking his eyes off Harold. What is this? What's going on?" Harold took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago, but I needed to be sure. I needed to know." One of the lawyers, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes, slid a folder across the table to Derek. "Mr. Johnson, what I'm about to tell you may come as a shock." Derek opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside were documents, official-looking papers with letterheads and signatures. But his eyes caught on one thing, a photograph. It was Harold, but different. Younger, confident, standing in front of a massive building with Lancaster Industries written across the front. "I don't understand," Derek said, his voice barely a whisper. Harold came around the table and sat in the chair next to Derek. "My name is Harold Lancaster. I'm the founder and former CEO of Lancaster Industries. We manufacture industrial equipment, employ over 5,000 people across the country. The company is worth approximately $800 million. The room spun. Derek stared at the papers, then at Harold, then back at the papers. "But you were homeless. You had nothing. I bought you sandwiches. I paid for your room." "I know," Harold said gently. And that's exactly why I'm telling you this now. I don't understand any of this. Harold leaned back, and for the first time since Derek arrived, he looked like the old man from the mall again. Tired, sad, and very, very human. 5 years ago, my wife died. Cancer. We'd been married for 48 years. She was my everything. After she passed, I started seeing my children, my business partners, even my so-called friends differently. All they cared about was money. Who would get what? How much they could take? My own sons fought over her jewelry before we'd even finished the funeral arrangements. Derek listened, still trying to process everything. I became disgusted with my life. Harold continued, surrounded by wealth but completely alone. Everyone wanted something from me, but nobody actually cared about me as a person. So I started wondering, is there any real kindness left in the world? Would anyone help me if I wasn't rich? If I was just a regular person with nothing to offer? So this was all a test? Derek felt something cold settle in his chest. Not at first, Harold said quickly. At first, I was just trying to understand how the other half lived. I'd spent my whole life in boardrooms and country clubs. I wanted to see the real world, to experience how people treat those who have nothing. And what I found was... He paused, his voice getting thick. What I found was cruelty, indifference. People looked through me like I was invisible. Store clerks followed me around like I was going to steal something. Parents pulled their children away from me. I was treated like garbage simply because I looked poor. For months I did this. Different places, different situations. And almost everywhere it was the same. Cold shoulders, suspicious looks, outright hostility. I started to lose hope that genuine kindness existed at all anymore. Harold looked directly at Derek now, his eyes wet. And then I met you. That rainy night at the mall. You didn't just help me, Derek, you saw me. You treated me like a human being worthy of dignity and respect. You gave me your jacket, bought me food with your own money, sat and talked with me like I mattered. Derek didn't know what to say. His mind was still reeling. But I needed to be sure, Harold continued. So I kept coming back. I watched how you treated me day after day, week after week. When your coworkers complained about me, you defended me. When I got sick, you visited me every single day in the hospital. You spent money you couldn't afford to lose to give me a place to live. You did all of this for someone you thought was nobody. Someone who could give you nothing in return. Because it was the right thing to do, Derek said, finding his voice. You needed help. Exactly, Harold said, and now the tears were flowing freely down his face. You didn't help me because you thought you'd get something out of it. You didn't help me to look good or feel good about yourself. You helped me because you genuinely cared about another human being. Do you have any idea how rare that is, Derek? How precious? The lawyer spoke up. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Lancaster asked us to verify everything you did. The money you spent, the time you took off work, the visits to the hospital. We have records of it all. You spent over $2,000 of your own money. Money we know you couldn't easily afford to help a stranger. Derek felt overwhelmed. I don't want your money. If that's what this is about, I don't want anything. I helped Harold because he's my friend, not because I expected something back. Harold reached over and gripped Derek's hand. I know, that's exactly why I'm doing this. You've reminded me that goodness still exists in this world, that there are still people who see beyond money and status and appearance. You've given me something I thought I'd lost forever, Derek. Hope, faith in humanity. So what happens now? Derek asked quietly. Harold smiled, really smiled for the first time since Derek had entered the room. Now I try to say thank you in the only way I know how. And I promise you, Derek, your life is about to change in ways you can't even imagine. I don't need anything to change, Derek said. I'm happy with my life. I know you are, Harold said. And that's exactly what makes you so extraordinary. Derek sat in stunned silence as one of the lawyers slid another folder across the table. His hands were still shaking as he opened it. Inside were checks, documents with his name on them, numbers that didn't make sense. This is the money you spent helping me, Harold explained. $2,347 to be exact. We're reimbursing you 10 times that amount. $23,470. Derek's eyes went wide. Harold, I can't accept this. That's too much. It's not nearly enough, Harold said firmly. But that's just the beginning. Derek, I want to offer you a job. A job? The lawyer Jennifer spoke up. Lancaster Industries is creating a new position. Director of Community Relations. The role would involve overseeing our charitable programs. working with communities to identify needs, and ensuring our company actually makes a difference in people's lives. The starting salary is $120,000 a year. Derek felt like he couldn't breathe. That was more than 3 times what he made as a security guard. Mr. Lancaster, I don't have a college degree. I'm not qualified for something like that. Harold leaned forward. You have something better than a degree. You have character. You have compassion. You understand what it means to struggle, to need help, to be treated with dignity. Those things can't be taught in any university. I'll provide all the training you need, connect you with the right people. But the heart of this job, the soul of it, that's something you already have. I need to talk to my wife, Derek said, his mind spinning. Of course. Take all the time you need. But there's more I want to discuss. Harold pulled out another document. I'm establishing a foundation. The Derek Johnson Compassion Fund. $10 million to start. Dedicated to helping homeless individuals, providing resources and dignity to people society has forgotten. You'll be on the board helping decide how the money is used. 10 million. Derek couldn't even finish the sentence. Your children, Harold continued. How old are they? My daughter's 16, my son's 13. Full scholarships to any college they want to attend. Everything paid for. Books, housing, tuition, everything. Derek put his head in his hands. It was too much. All of it was too much. Harold's voice softened. Derek, look at me. I'm 78 years old. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. My children are grown, they have their own wealth. What good is any of it if I can't use it to honor the kindness you showed me? You gave me something money can't buy. Let me give you something back. There's one more thing, Jennifer added. Your mortgage. We've looked into it. You owe about $140,000 on your house. Mr. Lancaster would like to pay it off completely. Derek started crying. He couldn't help it. Tears just came. Years of stress and worry and making ends meet all releasing at once. Harold moved closer and put a hand on his shoulder. You deserve this, Harold said gently. You deserve all of it and more. The meeting lasted another hour. There were papers to sign, details to discuss, plans to make. Derek left the office in a daze, sitting in his car in the parking garage for 20 minutes before he could even start the engine. His phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. How did it go? Everything okay? He didn't know how to answer that. How do you text your wife that your entire life just changed? He called her instead. Babe, I need you to sit down. Derek, you're scaring me. What happened? Just sit down, okay? Please, he told her everything. The whole story came pouring out. From Harold being a millionaire, to the job offer, to the college scholarships, to the mortgage. Patricia was silent on the other end for so long that Derek thought the call had dropped. Patricia? You there? I'm here. Her voice was shaking. Derek, is this real? This isn't some kind of scam? It's real. I saw the papers, the lawyers, everything. It's really real. He heard her start crying, then laughing, then crying again. Oh my God, Derek, the kids, we can send them to college. We don't have to worry about the mortgage. You can take that job and help people, really help people. I know. I can't believe it. I can, Patricia said, her voice full of emotion. I've always known you were special. Now the whole world gets to see it too. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Derek gave his notice at the mall, though he worked an extra 2 weeks to help them find and train his replacement. His coworkers were shocked when they heard about the job offer, some genuinely happy for him, others skeptical and jealous. Rita, the store manager who'd complained about Harold, barely spoke to him after she found out who Harold really was. Tony pulled him aside on his last day. You know, I gave you grief about helping that old man. I'm sorry about that. It's okay. No, it's not. You saw something in him that the rest of us missed. You treated him like a human being when everyone else wanted him gone. That says something about who you are. Tony shook his hand. You're going to do great things, Derek, I know it. Starting the new job was intimidating. Lancaster Industries headquarters was massive, all glass and steel and people in expensive suits. But Harold was there every step of the way, introducing Derek to key people, explaining how everything worked, making sure he felt supported. Remember, Harold told him on his first day, you're not here because you know about business. You're here because you know about people. Trust your instincts. Derek threw himself into the work. He visited homeless shelters and community centers, talked to people who were struggling, really listened to what they needed. He worked with the foundation to create programs that didn't just give handouts, but actually helped people rebuild their lives with dignity. One program gave people interview clothes and job training. Another provided temporary housing that felt like real homes, not shelters. A third helped people who'd been homeless get their identification documents, which Derek learned was a huge barrier to finding work. Within 6 months, the foundation had helped over 2,000 people. The local news did a story about it, about the former security guard who was changing lives. Derek was uncomfortable with the attention, but Harold convinced him it was important. "Your story inspires people," Harold said. "It reminds them that kindness matters, that one person can make a difference." But the biggest change wasn't the job or the money or even the programs they created. It was the friendship between Derek and Harold. The old man became part of Derek's family. He came over for dinner every Sunday, played board games with the kids, told stories about his life and his late wife. Harold also reconnected with his own children. It wasn't easy at first. There were hard conversations, hurt feelings that needed healing, but slowly they began to rebuild their relationships. Harold's son told Derek one day, "You showed my father that people could care about him for who he is, not what he has." That changed him. It changed all of us. 2 years after that rainy night at the mall, Derek stood on a stage accepting an award for humanitarian work. Patricia and the kids sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Harold sat next to them, looking frailer than he used to, but still sharp as ever. In his acceptance speech, Derek talked about his mother, about the lessons she'd taught him. He talked about seeing people for who they really are, not what they have or don't have. And he talked about Harold, about how one act of simple kindness had created ripples that touched thousands of lives. "I didn't help Harold expecting anything in return," Derek said to the crowded room. "I helped him because he needed help, and because it was the right thing to do. That's all any of us should ever need to do. See someone who needs help and help them. It's that simple." After the ceremony, as they all walked to the parking lot together, Harold pulled Derek aside. "I don't have much time left," he said quietly. "The doctors say maybe another year, maybe less. But I want you to know something. These past 2 years have been the happiest of my life. Not because of the money or the foundation or any of that, but because I found something I thought was lost forever. Real friendship. Real connection. You gave me that, Derek. You saved my life in more ways than you'll ever know." Derek hugged him tight. "You changed mine too. Thank you for trusting me. For believing in me. Thank you for reminding me what it means to be human." As Derek drove home that night, his family in the car, his best friend's words in his heart, he thought about how one simple choice had changed everything. The choice to see another person, really see them and treat them with kindness and dignity. His mama had been right all along. Kindness doesn't cost anything, but it's worth everything. And sometimes, just sometimes, one small act of compassion can change not just one life, but hundreds, thousands, maybe even the world. All it takes is choosing to care.